Currently, the Charlotte Hornets are sitting at the 7th seed in the weak Eastern Conference with a record of 17-18. As a Charlotte Hornets fan myself, I'm interested to see if they can make the playoffs for the first time since the 2016 season. But can they? According to my YouTube analytics, 0% of my viewers are subscribed, so if you like this video, subscribe. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be going over first what the Hornets did in the offseason, then what expectations they had, and then a breakdown of the team, and finally, my opinion on if they can really make the playoffs. Before we analyze the team's future potential to make the playoffs, we have to see what they did to get here. In the offseason, they lost Willy Hernangomez and Dwayne Bacon to free agency, and lost Nicholas Batum in a trade to land Gordon Hayward from the Celtics. And of course, drafted Lamelo Ball with the 3rd pick. At the start of the season, expectations weren't very high for the Hornets. Their over-under for wins at the start of the season was 26.5, and they had the 4th worst championship odds. Few were expecting them to make the playoffs in what was expected to be a much better Eastern Conference this year, but they have been a pleasant surprise for many fans.
Surprisingly, the Eastern Conference might have a similar issue to the West for the first time in a while, in that there are a lot more than just 8 playoff rosters here.
So why have they been performing at this level? To see, we need to analyze who's on the team, starting from the bottom and going up, generally, in performance. At the bottom of the rotation is Jalen McDaniels and the 2 Martin brothers. They don't play more than a few minutes usually in the game, but when they are in, they fit their role well enough, either playing defense or being a spot-up shooter on the team. Next is Bismack Biyombo. He also plays well in his role as a rim-running center, protecting the rim, setting screens, catching lobs, that sort of stuff. Malik Monk, he's shown huge improvement not only this year, but even since the start of the season. At the start of the season, he was getting DNPs, and now he's playing nearly 30 minutes of game. He's kind of a heat check player, similar to people like Jordan Clarkson or J.R. Smith. Sometimes it can feel like he's non-existent on offense, and sometimes he's their best player. And another player that fits great onto the team is Miles Bridges. He's the perfect lob target for Lamelo Ball and the other point guards. Cody Zeller is a pretty good setter, and of course, he's the GOAT of memes. He does the boring things like setting screens and rebounding, but overall, he's a pretty good big man. Devontae Graham is an interesting case on this team. With the increased role of Terry Rozier and Lamelo Ball, he doesn't have as large of a role on offense, and without the ball in his hands, he can't be utilized to his fullest. Don't get me wrong, he's still a good shooter and facilitator, but he's been struggling this year, shooting very inefficiently. But back to the positives, PJ Washington has developed a lot since his rookie year, and he's polishing his game up a lot. An interesting thing is that he's often been playing small ball center, and it's actually been working very well for the team, which is a great option in many tough situations they might find themselves. And next is their big offseason addition and their best player this year, Gordon Hayward. He's coming back into the role he had on the Jazz as the first option, scoring in a variety of ways. Probably the biggest surprise, though, has been Lamelo Ball. He was the most hyped and controversial rookie coming into the season, and he has surprised almost everybody. Since he's been in the starting lineup, he has averaged over 26-6 on great efficiency. Perhaps the most surprising thing is his 3-point shooting. He's confidently pulling from 5 feet behind the line and making them. He's been a huge X factor, helping them reach their current record. The team's coached by James Borrego, who's a pretty good coach. He doesn't do anything particularly amazing, but nothing horrible either. Okay, so now we've analyzed who's on their team, we can finally assess whether or not they can make the playoffs. Right now, they're the 7th seed in the East, but that can easily swing as the East this year is horrible. There are only 5 teams with a winning record, and at one point there were only 3. For instance, the 4-seeded Celtics wouldn't even be in the playoffs right now if they were in the West. So in the craziness of the Eastern Conference, which teams will take the 8th playoff spots? We can pretty easily say that the Nets, Bucks, and Sixers will make the playoffs as they have by far the best 3 records. And we can say the Pistons won't make it as they have by far the worst record. So this leaves 11 teams left for 5 spots. I'll try to be slowly dwindling this down from what I think might happen until we get to whether or not the Hornets make the playoffs. I can pretty confidently say 2 of these spots will be the Heat and the Celtics. They're the 2 most talented of the teams left, and many of their losses have been due to injuries. I could also say that the Magic and the Cavs will not make the playoffs. They're not only the 2 least talented teams left, but also have the 2 lowest records. So now let's fill in another one of these spots. I think the Toronto Raptors will make the playoffs again. They had large struggles at the start of the season, but as of late, they've been getting it together and returning back to their playoff form. While there's speculation about trades at the deadline, I don't think they'll do anything major to get their team worse, to the point of not making the playoffs. One more team I can eliminate from the playoffs is the New York Knicks. They've been outperforming expectations largely, but I don't know if they can sustain it through the rest of the season. One reason is that the Knicks have had a backloaded schedule throughout the season. So far, they've had the third easiest schedule, but they have the fifth hardest schedule remaining, which means their record is probably going to go down. I think I can also eliminate the Indiana Pacers. They've only won 4 of their last 14 games, and you can tell they are hurting from the loss of Victor Oladipo without anyone to replace him. I also think that the Wizards will miss the playoff. While they have been winning more lately, I think it will be hard for them to win enough games to make the playoffs, in my opinion. When it comes to the Atlanta Hawks, I think they actually will make the playoffs. Most of their offseason additions were injured at the start of the year, which is why they have been disappointing to many. So this finally leaves one spot and 2 teams left, Bulls versus Hornets. I actually think the Hornets will make the playoffs in the end, and here's why. The Bulls have the 6th hardest schedule left, while the Hornets have a schedule right around the middle. The Hornets also have a 1-game lead on the Bulls. Obviously, this can change wildly, and my predictions inevitably will be wrong. But I think the Hornets will have a very good chance of actually making the playoffs. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.